When you constantly have people asking you to rank a top 10 for your favorite author of all time, well, it's quite intimidating. So I don't think that I could do a top 10, but I thought, here's what I can do. I can go through all of these lovely, gorgeous, spectacular books that have meant so much to me, and I can just kind of put them in my order and kind of just see where they fall after I kind of go through each bit of them kind of segment by segment here. So this is going to be for part one of ranking Stephen King. Hey, what's up, bookworms and constant readers? Mike back to talk a little more King. It's been a little bit, going to talk about some Stephen King. And as long as I can remember, since I've been doing any Stephen King content on the channel, I've had people asking me, hey, what are your top 10 Stephen King books? And I'm like, that's like asking my 10 favorite Beatles songs. It's going to change before I'm even done by like number 8 or 9 here. So I decided, here's what I'm going to do. And this is just the first part of this, so I'll keep the explanation short. Is I'm going to kind of do these by some time periods because he's more prolific at certain times of his career than others. So I don't want to have like do by the decades, because I feel like then you'd have one decade where you have like 24 books, and another decade we have like 12. So I kind of say I was just going to kind of space it up randomly. So what I'm going to be doing today is part one, which is going to be his releases from 1974 through 1982. That's Carrie through Dark Tower #1, Gunslinger. And I am going to include the Richard Bachman stuff here. So that's kind of an interesting wrinkle, because when I'm doing my Into the Multiverse stuff, I am not doing the Bachman stuff the first time around. So I kind of want to go over what these categories here are now. I thought I was just going to do this as a regular ranking, but it turns out people want me to do this tier list thing, and I figured this would be a good idea for this. So each part that I do, I'm just going to kind of keep adding on to the previous one before. So everything I do here is going to stay on there when I do, part two here in the near future. Now, let me explain the categories here. Obviously, your S tier is going to be Ka, and then there is everything else. Obviously, this is the cream of the crop. This is the very best that the Path of the Beam has to offer here, and that's going to be very top. Then right below that, we got My Heart Burns there too, and if you've read it, you get what some of these things are. Obviously, Dark Tower reference, It reference. I try to be fun with these kind of things instead of just S, A, B, C, D. All right, but that's going to be very, very good. Any other author, it probably would be the best that they ever do, but this being my favorite author, it's going to have some things that kind of don't hit quite as high as Ka and then everything else. And below that, you've got The Shine, which is a book that I think is really, really good. It's a really great book, but it's not going to kind of compare to those first two there. You got something special going on, but it's not quite the, anything I would put in like a top 10 eventually or anything like that. Then you get down here lower, Dirty Birdie. This is something that I feel like it's something that I recommend that you read, but if I was doing like a reread, I'd probably skip it that next time around. And then, of course, no shitter ever came between me and Christine here. Shitters, that's pretty much self-explanatory. That's the stuff that I would recommend. Yeah, I'd probably go ahead and miss that if you're kind of on a tight schedule. Now, King as an author, obviously, I love, my favorite of all time, so it's going to be very hard for me to do some of these things. But again, I like to do what the people want here, so that's what we are going to do. So let's go ahead and kick it off here, guys, with 1974. This is Carrie. I think this is one of those books that's kind of gotten a legend in its own right about, he threw the book in the trash because he was unsatisfied with it. His wife Tabitha got out of the trash, read it, said, you've got something really good here, and the rest is history. I like to believe an author with his talent, he probably would have caught on with his next book. Maybe. Who knows? This is one of those things you'll never know, but it's almost become like a urban legend at this point. But Carrie, a book I think it's very easy to see that he had something special, and it's a good thing that he rolled it, because I think he's given us an iconic character in Carrie and an iconic villain in Carrie's mother, Margaret. So she's quite the villain of that story. Everybody wants to put Carrie as the villain, but I always would say it would be Margaret White. But Carrie White is an awesome character in her own right. This story is always going to be somewhat special to me, but when you compare it, it's kind of like those first Dresden Files books. They're not bad books, but when you look back on it, it's like, it's not as good as some of the others there. So I would put it firmly, and you've got The Shine here. It would definitely, the arrow would be pointing up. So like you see it going up here in the future. But right now, I mean, even on a reread, I thought, yeah, there was a lot of stuff here, but you can still see he was working out his kinks as an author, obviously. But again, right off the bat, showing that he knew how to write a teenage girl was quite impressive in its own right. Then you move along here. Next up, we've got Salem's Lot. In my opinion, one of the finest vampire stories ever written. And I believe King himself has said he believes this is his scariest story. A lot of people ask me two things. They say, what is his scariest book? And what books do I have to read before I read Dark Tower? I always tell people, you can read Dark Tower in its own right. You don't need anything. However, Dark Tower 5 will spoil the hell out of Salem's Lot. And it's such an awesome book, guys. I recommend that you read it and don't have it spoiled by something else. So, yes, it is obviously the book I go to. If people say they want to be scared, I say, okay, look, if you want something that's like emotionally scary, I say Pet Sematary. You want something that's just actually like scary, especially when vampires were still scary and not sexy? Salem's Lot, guys. That is it. And this is one of my favorite Stephen King books. So it's all right up there with Ka, and then everything else. And then we got getting into some of these legendary ones here, guys. The Shining. Now, this is a book I think that any people who don't even read Stephen King are aware of The Shining, mostly from Kubrick's movie. But there are other people who know plenty about this book, regardless of if they've read it or not. And it's a good reason why, is when I reread this, is like I was stunned, because I say at a certain age, you get to that point where, a book can't really scare you anymore once you're a certain age. I read this again, I think, in 2019, and Room 237, that chapter, scared the hell out of me. I mean, even at this age, it's kind of those things where you're kind of looking around the house and you're like, what was that noise? When you're reading in the middle of the night and it's kind of dark. That chapter still will put the tingles up and down your spine. So one of his scariest books, without a doubt, for more ways than one. Not quite going to put it S tier, though, guys. I got to go with My Heart Burns There, too. Obviously, this is a legendary novel. But again, I feel like we hadn't really seen everything that this guy had. We hadn't seen his full arsenal yet on what he was really capable of. And he was definitely on the right path here. But I felt like as far as like a solid full story, it was a step down after Salem's Lot, which did such an incredible job of developing that whole town. And this took it back down into, what do you want to capture, the sense of solitude in there. So he builds tension incredibly well there. And he shows how, he can show us already things that we're scared of and we didn't know that we were scared of. But very much a great book, but just misses being Ka and then everything else. Then you get to the first of the Bachman books here. This is Rage. Now, this is a book I think that he's kind of over time said he kind of wants to like disassociate himself from, because it does have to do with, school shootings and with active shooters still being like a very big problem. It's something that I feel like he can look back on and say, I was young when I wrote that. But I never look at it that way. I think it was the kind of thing that I've always said that King was talking about stuff before people thought it was okay to talk about. And that's very prevalent here. However, you can tell he wrote this early, before he was a published author. A lot of the Bachman books you go back to and say, okay, he was writing this stuff when he was a teenager. It's amazing what he was able to do at that time, but it's not one of his better stories. So I think Rage is worth reading, but it's one of those, like, after you've read like some of his greatest hits, if you try to go back to it, it's kind of like, this is almost kind of amateurish. So when I say Dirty Birdie, it's definitely not a bad book. But I would say if I'm doing a reread, it's probably one I'm not going to reread. Now you're getting into just some of the all-time greats here, guys. I've talked about The Stand on this channel numerous times. I want to say it's my longest Stephen King review on the channel is The Stand. Just like it's his longest book, and it's an amazing book. And it's not my favorite Stephen King book, but if someone tells me they think that The Stand is the best Stephen King book, I'm not going to argue with them too much, because that book is just amazing. What I liked about that is it's a book that he has so many characters. I mean, dozens and dozens of characters, good and bad, and you will not feel like a single one of them is throwaway. They're all spectacular characters. And obviously it introduces, I think, his most iconic villain. But outside of that, it's we want to put this story in fantasy. I mean, even he said it's kind of like his Lord of the Rings, obviously set in modern day, or at the time, modern day, dealing with, an actual... dealing with a virus that kills like 99.6% of the population. It's a very, very serious book, and it's very, very grim and dark and hopeless, but it will find things that will make you feel like there is hope when everything seems down. It's a book that I think is just amazing, and I've only read the uncut, uncensored, whatever, 1990 edition he put out. So I can't compare it to the original version, but I say if you're going to read it, guys, read this version, because it's the only one that I've read, and I think it was like the most complete book. And I hear a lot of people say like, oh, it's just too long, and I'm like, you know what? I didn't want it to end. I wanted it to keep going. And that's why it's going to be firmly, guys, right up here at the very top. Ka and everything else. This is one of his greatest books. It's one of my favorite books ever written, guys. It's so, so good. I hope you'll check it out. Don't worry about the link. I said about this book, just accept that, you know what? Not going to be reading anything else for a while, and just go with it. It's not a book you need to speed run. It's a book that's just a journey that you need to take with these characters, and just take your time. Let it breathe. I think it's just an incredible book, and it's one of the kind of the longer ones I would say I would ever want to reread. But yeah, I would definitely read this book again because it was just so special. It's such an awesome ride. Some of my favorite characters in the multiverse. Larry Underwood, easily one of my favorite characters ever in literary fiction at all. So definitely the highest ever recommends from me. Then you get to The Long Walk, a book I took a little longer to read than I meant to. Didn't read it again until 2019 when I was doing some of these in order. And I decided to kind of cut this one to the front because it was like, this is one that I felt like is very legendary. People talk about this book a lot. And they have, varying opinions on it, more good than bad. But there are some people like, it's just people walking. And I kind of had the same attitude. No, it's just people walking, for 3 miles per hour. How exciting can that be? I'll be damned if you aren't riveted to the last page of this book. And it's even more incredible when you consider Stephen King was a teenager when he wrote this book. And I was in tears in those last few pages, man. It's so good. He finds a way to make you care about all these characters. And this is right away you can see this guy was going to be a master of character development because you care every single one of the time the kids kind of fall off the map here, if you know what I'm saying. It's such an amazing book. And I said, I felt embarrassed it took me that long to read it because I said, right now I feel like it would be a top 10 King book for me. Now, when we finish this tier list here, we'll see if I still feel the same way. But yeah, guys, this is right up here, man. I love it. I thought The Long Walk was absolutely amazing and would revisit, and I recommend it to everyone to see about this dystopian subgenre that got really popular. I feel like he is one of the people who helped to popularize it. I really do feel like Long Walk and Running Man, a lot of things borrowed from those, and you know what those things are. And I think that's an influential story that everyone can enjoy. Okay, now we're getting into the Dead Zone, some of the big named ones here. The Dead Zone was one that, like, when I read it the first time, I was kind of okay on it because I wasn't, following politics very much at the time. I just wanted Stephen King to scare me when I was reading it. And this was almost more like a thriller than it was anything horror. So it was very different for me going into this one when I first read it the first time. Now, I read it again, a couple years ago, and I absolutely loved it. I thought the relationship with Johnny and his father was some of the most endearing stuff that he's ever written. And it's just... it's very much, if you want to say it, like a thrill ride, and very much in like a Michael Crichton kind of way, but with a Stephen King, obviously, element to it, in that it's just like a page turner. You can't put it down. You got to find out what happens next. And Greg Stillson, one of his best villains ever, right? And Dead Zone, guys, is one of those I think just gets finer with age. I know a lot of people think about the adaptation. They think about Christopher Walken. I think of Anthony Michael Hall. I liked his version of John Smith better on that TV show. But that has nothing to do with the book, guys. But this one, it's going to be right here behind The Shining, I think. My heart burns there, too. Very, very impressive book that only gets better with age. And I think on a reread, you'll find a lot of things that you do enjoy. So it's amazing when you go back on some of these and see how well they've aged. It's rather quite impressive because a lot of these things you go back to and you're like, wow, because King does like to be very relative to what's going on in the world at the times when he writes. And some of that's in here. You will get like references like Jimmy Carter and stuff like that. So that's going to happen, but it still feels very relevant. It's very, very good the way that he does things. Okay, Firestarter was one that I said I feel like a lot of people say, oh, I love Stranger Things, but I'm not really into Stephen King. And I'm like, well, you've got to read Firestarter because I feel like Firestarter and a few other things, Carrie especially, and probably The Mist, would be the things I felt like Stranger Things was really, really based on. It's a mashup of all those things. And Firestarter has one of the first instances where you can see how well this guy really can write kids. He did pretty good with Danny Torrance in The Shining, but he kind of cranks it up a little bit here with Charlie. I think that Charlie McGee is definitely one of his best children protagonists. And you can see right away, this guy really just understands how to write kids, how kids talk to their parents, how kids talk to each other, all those things. And Rainbird, one of his most bone-chilling villains of all. However, I do feel like the narrative does fall a little short in some places. This did kind of feel like a 300-page book that could have probably been a novella, honestly. It's one of those I feel like if It's weird because most people say his books are too long. I feel like this one was too short. I felt like if it had been longer and kind of fleshed out in some key areas, it would have made it a better overall story. So I'm going to put it right here behind Carrie, I think. And You've Got the Shine. It's not a bad book at all. I don't think anything I've listed here is a bad book. But yeah, it's one that I think even on the reread, I was kind of like, I'm just kind of ho-hum on it. When this was really during his hot streak, I think he had just set the bar too high at this point. But again, it's definitely got some iconic moments, and I'm looking forward to seeing that new Blumhouse adaptation, see how it does. Next up, we got Roadwork. Now, this is a book, guys, I'm going to be straight with you. I didn't care for it all. I didn't like it then. I didn't like it on a reread. This is probably going to be one of the only one that's going to go on this list here, guys. It's not that good. It's just not that good. You can see it would kind of almost felt like it was the throw-in on the Bachman books. It's not one that really clicked for me. I know some people really enjoy it. It just, something about it, it was a drag for me. And when I reread it, I was like, I can't believe I just wasted that much time. So yes, for everybody who says you love everything Stephen King's ever written, I think I got quite a variety going right here, right? I mean, who would have thought I'd have one in shitters? I mean, honestly, when you saw that category, did you think I'd have one there? Oh, there we go. So Cujo is definitely one that's kind of divisive amongst the fan base. Some people love it, myself. Other people say they feel like it's kind of a waste of character development because he will develop these characters that have no meaning to the overall story. And I think that was on purpose. I feel like the reason that he did this was to kind of show when life-altering moments happen, what happened earlier in the day don't mean shit anymore. Those things that you think mattered, they didn't matter at all. So all these real-life problems this couple have, all of a sudden you're locked in a car with a killer rabid Saint Bernard outside while you're trying to protect your child. You don't care about what happened this morning that you thought was the biggest problem in the universe, right? So I think it's just an awesome, awesome way that he does that. And he develops these characters in a way that you care about what happens at the end, guys. And I'll tell you, if you've only seen the movie, the book's ending is very different. And in my opinion, it's way better. And I think this is when King still had the that killer attitude, and he had no problem making the tough choices here. And Cujo really starts building his mythos a little bit because you start to see some people show up again, like Sheriff Bannerman, people like that. You start to see other characters show up in multiple stories and things like that. And you see that he had no problem. He would kill a kid. He would kill women. He didn't care, guys. He was vicious during this time. And as someone who works or wants to work in more marketing, I think I kind of saw a really neat opportunity with some of the things in this with nothing wrong here. If people know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to put it just before Carrie here. It's not quite up there with these two, with The Shining and Dead Zone, but I definitely think it would be leading the pack of You've Got the Shine here. So it's one that I did enjoy on the reread, and I would reread it again because I thought it was pretty well done. It built tension in really the right way that I felt like he was getting very good at this point in his career. So we're coming to the end here. We got The Running Man. Now, this is one, I won't lie, I was introduced to it with the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie back in the day because, when I was growing up, Arnold, that was it, right? Gen Xers, we love us some Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. So I don't know if that kind of poisoned my mind to what it was like because, look, guys, that movie, nothing like the book. It really isn't. Besides the overall concept of the game, there really isn't a lot in that movie quite like the book. I gotta say, I like Killian much better in the movie than in the book. I found him very generic, mustache twirling bad guy, evil for evil's sake. And I expect more of my villains out of Stephen King than this. So again, with the Bachman books, I feel like those first four are going to be hit or miss because he was so young when he was writing them. As you see here, you have at the very top, you have one almost the bottom and then one at the very bottom. Whereas I think The Running Man probably will be ahead of Rage. But, not, it won't let me put it there, will it? But, yeah, definitely not up here with like Firestarter or Carrie or Cujo. So, again, lots of great ideas presented in this book and ideas that I feel like have been pilfered upon, especially by the modern young adult teen romance dystopian, whatever you want to call it, genre. I feel like they borrow from it quite a bit, even if they deny it. You know who you are. But yeah, I definitely think that there's lots of things. There were ideas that were really good in that book. They just weren't maybe presented the best. Now, you guys do know I am a Tower junkie. I do love me some Dark Tower. When people say they want to they recommend skipping the Gunslinger, I'm like, what, baby, what is you doing, right? Because you can't skip the Gunslinger and understand what's going on in Drawing of the Three. With me, I feel like because the Gunslinger was actually first released in 5 parts in a magazine when it first came out, that can hurt the narrative a little bit. A lot of other people are like, I didn't understand what in the world was going on. Yeah, no one did. I mean, I don't even think King did when he was writing this, but it's one of those things when I did the reread, I'm doing my reread of it right now, I was amazed at how much foreshadowing there is for the end of the series in his first book. So he definitely did know somewhat where he was going. I think even he said he's made some of it up as he went along. But you can see there were some seeds that were planted really early. But I look at this as like a prologue, guys. It's a prologue. You get introduced to the character of Roland. You get introduced to Jake. You kind of get introduced to the Man in Black, what's kind of going on in this world. You don't get answers at all because why? This is part 1. This is a prologue of a 7-part story here. So I think it's a great way of setting up the world. I like it, one of my favorites because it does feel like that kind of dystopian Western, something I feel like hadn't been done a lot before. So I'm always going to hold it up high regard. And again, for many things, just because it has one of the best opening lines in the history of books. And the Man in Black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. So this book will always be special to me, I think, because it was a time when I was kind of out of fantasy a little bit. And when I picked it up, it really just got my interest level in fantasy going again. This was a time when I had read a lot of Stephen King, but I did not get Dark Tower because my school library didn't have it at the time. So, guys, I think I would put it right here. So I know some people probably don't think that's kind of high, but again, I think it has like some significance to me because, like I said, it really felt like it pulled me back into fantasy, and I was very, very excited to do it. And yeah, I've kind of been a Tower guy ever since, and I don't think that will change. But know that this is not my favorite Dark Tower book. So there is more Tower, obviously, to come. We got a couple of them coming on the next video. But this is just part 1, like I said. My plan is to break this into about 5 parts. I feel like that's the best way to get his bibliography kind of... So I don't have like a 2-hour video, guys. I feel like this is the best way to kind of break it up. So I haven't had a lot of Stephen King content on the channel since I stopped doing Into the Multiverse, which I'm going to continue, guys. I am reading Dolores Claiborne right now. So I will be having Into the Multiverse about that rather soon. So I'm still going to be doing Into the Multiverse, guys. It's just going to be a slower schedule than before. But I thought this would be a good way to kind of balance out while we don't have a lot of Stephen King content on the channel. And since everybody's been asking me to do this, so if you guys want me to continue doing this as a tier list, I will definitely keep doing that because I think it would be fun to kind of keep adding on to it here as we go along instead of, just starting this from scratch every single time. And then you can look at it that way and say, hey, look, he finally ranked all of the Multiverse books, right? So, guys, that's how I am for the first 3, 6, 9, 12 books here. If you want to count those Bachman books as individual books. I do. They release them as paperback, so I count them as individual releases. And, next one, I don't know how far I'm going to go with the next one, but I'll make that announcement on one of my weekly updates soon. But stay tuned for that very soon. So, guys, of these 12 here, do you think I was fair to them? Do you think I put some too low, some too high? How would you rank them? Go ahead and drop in the comments, guys, and let me know, and I will talk to you there.